welcome back to Tandem Fandom. I'm Mick.
I'm Courtney.
And welcome back to another episode of War with Words, a Monday Night Retrospective. And I gotta say, big things happening in the world of professional wrestling 20 years ago.
Yeah, if you watched the pay-per-view on Sunday night.
Definitely. That would be where you got to see one of the most iconic moments in the history, the entire history of the professional wrestling business, the true formation of the NWO.
Before they're called the NWF.
Well, yeah, officially. But, you know, Hollywood, Hulk Hogan.
Yep, Hall and Nash bring their third person. It's July 7th, 1996, Great American Bash. Bash at the Beach?
Yeah.
Bash at the Beach.
Bash at the Beach.
There's a lot of bashing going on around here.
But, you know, it's such a big moment. I mean, everybody's seen it played out, you know, probably 1,000 times at this point, because it is probably, if it might be the biggest moment in WCW's history. Like, it's really hard to argue that it wasn't.
The crescendo of the turning point of Hall's defaction.
Yeah, it's just, it's crazy to see that 20 years later, the NWO and the formation of the NWO still has such a big impact on the business. But did it have an impact on WCW Monday Nitro?
On July 8th?
Not at all.
Really. Well, if a negative impact, I would say, because this was the most lackluster episode of Nitro that we have gone through in this series.
100%, I agree. I think knowing what happened, and even if you had watched the pay-per-view, the level of excitement that you would have felt of what are they going to do tomorrow night?
What's going to happen on Monday?
And what happened? They talked to pretty much every wrestler on the show about Hulk Hogan betraying WCW, and that was it.
Yeah, and they didn't even say Hulk's name. They kept saying third man, third man.
They said it finally, but it took a while.
And every interview they did was just wrestlers on the roster talking shit about Hulk Hogan betraying them and what a piece of trash he is. And he wasn't even there. I
think that's the worst part of it for me, because, you know, in wrestling a lot of times they talk about payoff from something happening.
Yeah.
You know, you want to generate buzz or reaction. You know, they definitely did that at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
The following night on Nitro, it wasn't there. There was nothing there. It almost like it didn't happen. Or it had happened weeks prior. Yeah. So,
and it was such a grand stage. They were at the Disney MGM.
Yeah, they're outside. They're outdoors. It's a very different look for Nitro. They opened the show. They did say, you know, in the second hour, we're going to show you the fallout from the Bash at the Beach. We're going to show you the pictures.
With us.
Yeah, stick with us. Show you the pictures of what happened.
But literally the very end of the show.
Yeah.
End of the show. Not without the usual making you feel bad for not watching the pay-per-view, so you better buy it tomorrow. Call your cable provider right now.
Yeah, but I don't want to beat them up too much. They did some good things. They
don't want to have too much of a bash at the beach.
They did some good things. They opened the show with Rey Mysterio against Dean Malenko,
which, as we know by now, you know, it's an awesome feud.
The Cruiserweight belt was on the line, and if you want to talk about history, this is pretty big. You know, Rey Mysterio winning the Cruiserweight title on Raw, setting this precedent that the Cruiserweights can carry what is ultimately a bad Nitro. And in my opinion, that's what happened on the show. As we go further in, you'll see what I'm saying.
Well, with the Cruiserweight Classic happening now, every WWE, like every day, I see somebody referencing Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko, the original, you know, cruiserweight that caused buzz.
Yeah, and you know, it's fair to say that, because Rey was something so different and so fresh, and he was so young, and to see him and Malenko go out, they had an amazing match. They tore the house down. You know, they did a backstage with Rey, interviewing him. And
all he did was apologize in Spanish to his Mexican fans and friends about Hulk Hogan.
That's my biggest issue. This is a moment that should have been all about Rey Mysterio. He should have been talking about this great achievement of winning the belt and what it, what it could mean, for his fans and for the little guy and for everybody that was told, well, you're too small or you can't, and here, I proved it, I won it for you, and none of that was there. It was just apologizing for Hulk Hogan. And I get it's a very, very big moment.
But
I get that.
Ultimately, it doesn't affect Ray.
No, not really. I mean, yes, it affects WCW, but it's not like him and Hogan were buddies and hanging out. Like, Hulk Hogan probably didn't even know this guy existed.
Right.
So, on the other television program, we open with Gorilla Monsoon announcing that the Ultimate Warrior has been suspended for essentially no showing live events.
Right.
He didn't say live events, but the things he named, they had toured there recently.
For no showing things that he was announced for letting down the fans, and just really laid it out for us in a really nice way. I had no idea that this had ever even happened.
Yeah, and to reference back to something we talked about in previous episodes, they have their hotline, where they kind of give you the rundown and the skinny of what's going on behind the scenes. The last thing we heard was Ultimate Warrior. Why is he in the doghouse? So that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
You could be ahead of the curve. Granted, you would know what they wanted you to know.
Exactly.
But you could still feel like, I'm an insider. I got backstage. The Ultimate Warrior's going to be suspended.
Yeah, you could tell your buddies, Tuesday at school, hey, Monday.
And that's really cool, because I think that's something that helps make the fans feel closer to the business. And today we have that with the dirt sheets and, the ability to connect through social media, through YouTube.
Facebook exclusives.
Yeah, so it's cool to see kind of where that started was a 1-900 number.
Yeah.
Raw also seemed like they had a new video package opening, which was really cool.
It was a lot of the same maneuvers and moves and body slams and stuff that were happening, but it had extra effects and animations and the red circle and stuff.
It was a little more aggressive, a little more flashier. I still think Nitro has the better intro. It's just really cool. And you had Owen Hart and the Ultimate Warrior opening the first match,
and Monsoon did say, he's going to be on the show tonight, because it is pre-recorded.
Well, he didn't say that it was, but us knowing that it's pre-recorded, we're like, that's why they already recorded this.
They can't really edit him out. The great ultimate blue dot.
But it worked out, because you had the British Bulldog and Vader come down as members of Camp Cornette, and they all kind of put the boots to the Ultimate Warrior. So there's a way that they can kind of beat him off of television, and to go along with the suspension as well. So that was pretty strong.
But what was super impressive was the amount of pyro they used for Warrior's entrance.
Holy cow. He had the big Ultimate Warrior symbol behind him.
Yeah, I was afraid he was going to catch on fire, all that body oil.
But looked expensive.
It was amazing, because just going back to the first episode we started this series with, there was not even a firecracker.
Yeah.
But there was 4 big,
and there were
mortars and
flames hitting the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy.
It's wow, it really, everything really snowballed so quickly.
Yeah.
WCW's doing pyro, let's do pyro. And it's amazing to see it play out, because it really did happen so quick.
It's interesting. The other thing I thought that was really interesting as well is, did you notice that we had a backstage segment with WCW and a backstage segment with WWF pretty much at the same time? WWF's was, Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson, 2 champions. WCW's was the Nasty Boys, the Steiners, and Mean Gene Okerlund, and because the Nasty Boys and the Steiners are going to have a match. So I found that was really interesting that they timed backstage segments right there. I mean, obviously, WCW being live, maybe they knew or had seen. Yeah,
watching. They're like, go to the segment.
Yeah, but I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
But I thought Nitro was good the way they did that. They're hyping the match later in the night.
Yeah, it was a #1 contendership for the tag team championships
Yeah.
against Harlem Heat.
So that was really cool.
Shades of we're really starting to see Scott Steiner. In
Oh,
his,
yeah,
in all
yeah.
his glory.
You come here. You get these championships.
I'm pretty sure he said champy instead of
You get your
championship.
champion.
You don't deserve nasty boys. You do fat asses. You don't deserve.
You, Brian Knobs, you faced me. You only got 33 and 1/3 chance of winning.
Like it's coming. The first time we saw him, it was like, oh crap, he can speak.
And then that's quickly going away.
Completely out.
HBK and Ahmed Johnson were. And speaking of unintelligible speech, I did not understand one word that Ahmed Johnson said at all.
I don't know if it was his volume or his pacing
Or his accent. I had no idea.
Just like what?
Yeah, no clue what the man was saying at all.
He looked great.
Yeah, he looked like $1 million. You just couldn't understand a damn word that came out of his mouth. So going out of that, with Nitro, we had a promo for a guy that you are like vibrating. You are so excited to see this guy. And we still have no idea when he's coming. Of course, I'm talking about Glacier.
The exact same promo. They did it like 3 times during the show. It just keeps saying coming to WCW. It's not saying next week. It's not saying tonight. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything.
She is ready to see Glacier at this point. She is over the moon for this guy, and it's just been the same stupid vignette over and over.
Over and over and over.
You know, and on Nitro, as Savio Vega against Justin Hawk Bradshaw starts, you see a wild Brian Pillman appears and crutches, and he's like swinging at people, and
because that's what he does.
And like J.J. Dillon comes out, and he's like, "Calm down, Brian." And it's like, I have no idea what was that was weird.
It was weird. Like, I don't know why Brian Pillman's such a crazy. Like,
He's a loose cannon.
That's all they're allowing him to be.
You gotta watch out for the Brian Pillman.
Is this nut?
He's a loose cannon.
Loose hand cannon, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. So on Nitro, we saw, you know, the more Dungeon of Doom fodder, Hugh Morris and Big Bubba in a tag match against the Blue Bloods, which is very strange to see the Dungeon of Doom cheered because they're a heel team.
Right.
The Blue Bloods are a heel team, but the Blue Bloods are British, so USA. And you know, I think about these matchups every week, and I'm getting so exhausted and tired when I turn into Nitro. I'm seeing the Dungeon of Doom and John Tenta on my screen. Woo! I can't take it no more. Woo! We need to get some quality professional wrestling on the Nitro. WCW has a history of greatness that we gotta live up. Because if you got the big goal and you're the best in the business today, Charlotte, North Carolina, Boston, Massachusetts, Minneapolis, the Carolinas, WCW, step it up. Sorry. I was overcome by the spirit of the Nature Boy.
I was just drawn in. I couldn't help myself. My feminine wiles.
I'm sorry, everybody. I want to apologize. I get so worked up with trying to. You know, I get worked up. I get upset when I see WCW and I know what they're capable of, and we see the same John Tenta, like
attacks Bubba. He still has the like half shaved head.
The one thing I gathered from Bash at the Beach, aside from the NWO, of course, was the fact that John Tenta beat Big Bubba with a damn sock full of silver dollars.
It was a sock full of silver dollars match.
Why is it still happening every single week? You do this again, and the Nature Boy is gonna come for you. Woo! Speaking of the Nature Boy, Ric Flair is the new United States Heavyweight Champion, which is very exciting to see. Although we hadn't seen Conan on television for weeks. But hey, man, we know we're gonna see Rick, so I'll take that.
Yeah.
On the other side, Savio Vega versus Justin Hawk Bradshaw. Would you like to share with the good people what you said with this match?
I'm so embarrassed. But it was such a genuine reaction. I can't help but share this. So we're sitting on the couch, we're watching, Savio Vega versus this newcomer.
This big blonde dude.
I love Savio Vega. He puts on great matches. He's always put on great matches. I love watching him wrestle. And he's wrestling this big galoof. He's kind of flabby. He's botching spots. Savio Vega, he arm drags Savio. It's all he could have just not been there.
This guy looks like the drizzling shit.
That whole move was Savio just doing a flip, and this Hawk guy happened to just have his arm there. It was so rough to watch, and I'm like, man, who is this jobber? Like, he's just stinking up the ring. This must just be to put Savio over. He's just, who is this guy? And Mick looks at me and goes, that's JBL.
And she bursts out laughing because she loves JBL.
I love JBL.
But
I feel like such a jerk, but holy jeez.
Hey man, 20 years is
That's a long time. He's got Zebediah, what was his name?
It's Zeb Coulter, Dutch Mantel, but I think they were calling him Zebekiah. But I think they were also calling him Zeb, so I believe he was Zeb Coulter back then too.
He's got Zeb out there as his manager, and I'm like, look at this ridiculous fat cowboy. I was like, oh no, that's my ridiculous fat cowboy.
It was a good, solid match, though. I will say that. I mean,
it went on for a really long time. It was surprising that this young up-and-comer could keep up with Savio for that long. I mean, he was a little sweaty at the end, but
yeah, it was a solid match, though. Savio ended up picking up the win. Man, he was just a great hand. Like, he's such a great worker. I think you said about Savio, you're like, man, he's really good, but there's nothing that you look at him that makes him stand out in a positive or a negative way.
Right.
Outside of his ability. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what holds him back a little bit.
He's not, super huge like Booker T, but he's not like super ugly like Vader. Like, there's nothing really you could grab onto about him. But he's so good in the ring. Yeah,
he's fantastic. Again, though, we're seeing another similar thing on two shows. Another WCW magazine promo. But guess who has a magazine now?
Arriving on newsstands tomorrow.
The WWF magazine. And I'm like, huh. Which just goes to show, much like the final deletion, much like anything and everything in professional wrestling,
if somebody's successful with it, it shall be copied.
Yep, that's just the way this business that we love works.
Those people want magazines. I need a magazine. That's my Vince McMahon.
Hey pal,
you want to be in a magazine? He pops up from behind the news rack. Hey pal.
Hey pal, why don't you buy this magazine? Eddie Guerrero and a debuting on Nitro, Psychosis.
Awesome match.
Such a great match.
I love Psychosis. I haven't really watched a lot of Eddie's career, so this was fantastic for me to watch.
Eddie Guerrero, I think, is such a bright and shining star on WCW, to a point that, and you'll see this as we go along more and more, why the hell did they not do more with him is the moral of the story. Like, when he goes to WWE and becomes very successful, it's really no question, because you just see what Eddie can do in the ring, his abilities to tell a great story, his abilities to work. The guy's fantastic, and Psychosis was excellent cruiserweight, excellent wrestler as well. Such a unique look.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like a comic book villain almost, with the way his suit is and the hair and the horns. Really solid match. When you stack this one up across anything that WWF had on that episode of Raw, I mean, it's just head and shoulders above that. It's such a great match.
It was.
And we were a little bit wrong on our placing. This match was the horrible Rey Mysterio backstage, where he just apologizes for Hulk Hogan. Do you want to say your wonderful Larry Zbyszko line about...
Oh man, Larry Zbyszko delivering week after week with some of the best commentary I've ever heard. It definitely doesn't make me want to rip my ears out. He's delivering this fantastic piece of just wisdom.
Yeah.
When human bodies get sweaty, they slip. You can't hold on to it.
You can't write this stuff. I
can.
mean, this is wisdom that we need to capture for generations. Here we are 20 years later sharing to you this great piece of commentary.
If you get sweaty, it's hard for people to hang on to you. Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
So, on WWF, they did another thing that we're a big fan of. They showed a video for the block party that they had recently had.
Yeah, how cool was that? I wish they would do that now. That
Yeah.
looked like so much fun. It was like an outdoor fan fest.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just kind of a meet and greet for fans. You know, they had some live music. They had a lot of the superstars going and signing autographs and taking pictures, shaking hands. It was really cool, and we were talking about it off camera, and we were saying that, you know, today they're very much on the universe, and they do have like WrestleMania access and the VIP backstage stuff, and it's so cool to see that they really understand and embrace the fact that their fans are important. Without their fans, they're not in business.
Right.
So them seeing, again, 20 years ago, seeing them do stuff like this, it's really cool to see how the simple block party has grown into like access and the VIP experiences that they do, and
all the Make-A-Wish and the Be a Star and all the organizations that they reach out to just to put smiles on faces. That's all it is.
It's really, really cool, and it's just such a really, really great thing to see.
It's good to see that that's always been like a core value of the company.
Yeah. So coming out of that, we saw the British Bulldog and Vader, members of Camp Cornette, team together to go against the Godwins. What did you think about this match? Because, I said this during the match, I was like, I don't know what it is, but there's something about the Godwins that I just like.
You know, it was a really good match.
Yeah.
I think this might have been the best match on the card.
Yeah.
Because Cornette was on commentary. He wasn't that bad this time. But it was really weird because him and King started talking at the same time and like agreeing, and I was like, oh my god, he just butted off of King, and it's like a gremlin, and they're just
really
sitting there on either side of Vince. He's brandishing his tennis racket. The Godwins come out with baby goats.
Which, those were adorable goats.
They were so cute, but of course they end up by the commentary table, and Cornette's like, ugh! Don't get that like redneck trash on me or something like that. He's like wiping his hands on the table.
Yeah, it was good. It really added to the match. In terms of like story for the Godwins, there wasn't much there, but it really helped with Camp Cornette. You know, because the whole time we're seeing like, again, if it's successful in wrestling, it's going to be copied. Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson having an upcoming 3-man tag match against Camp Cornette. Who's the third man going to be? Who's the third man? So we're seeing that throughout the entire match.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think this is the best match of the night. It was solid. Again, they had tons of time.
Tons of time.
I really liked it. Like, I really did. I was like, man, just something about it. The crowd was really behind the Godwins as well.
Right, and you know the Godwins are going to lose just because of the whole Cornette storyline. But they really put on a great show. It was a great tag match. I loved everything about it.
I agree. You know, on Nitro, we saw another tag match. It was the Nasty Boys, not favorites of Tandem Fandom, against big favorites of Tandem Fandom, the Steiners. You know, this is an okay match. I mean, it wasn't spectacular. They went to the second hour in the middle of this match, which is so weird to see, like, a match happening and then pyro going off in the middle of it.
It was only a little bit, but it did more when the sun went down.
Yeah. It was okay. In terms of, like, what the Steiners could do to the Nasty Boys, or perhaps what the Nasty Boys were willing to let the Steiners do to them, because we didn't see a ton of the suplexes that we typically see.
Yeah.
We didn't see what we usually do with the Steiners and the Harlem Heat.
Right.
I mean, it's bottom line there.
But Thankfully, the Steiners won.
They did.
So we're going to get to see more Steiners in Harlem.
Via interference by Colonel Parker, one of the managers of the Harlem Heat.
Which is interesting, because why would the Harlem Heat's manager care who won?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Maybe he went with the Steiners because the Harlem Heat had beaten the Steiners before?
Maybe.
Be my guess. On WWF, we saw Bulldog and Vader pull out the win. The reveal of the third man was the master and the ruler of the world, Psycho Sid.
Which was an awesome visual.
And Cornette's reaction made it.
He's ducking behind Shawn.
Yeah.
So when he comes out, he's like this big.
And you got Shawn.
And Cornette's like,
it was cool. I want to commend Cornette, man, as much as we blast him on this show, it was perfect.
It was great, and it closes out with him like, oh my god,
yeah, very cool stuff.
I'm super excited for next week because of how they closed it out, and because when Sid came out, I was like, that's a huge man.
Master.
That's a big angry man.
The world. And I'm also interested to see, we got another 900 number exclusive.
Yeah.
There seems to be speculation on a love triangle between Goldust, Marlena, and Sable. So I'm curious to see if next week or the week after we will see something drive forward on that.
Because last week they made comments on how Marlena was helping Sable fix her skirt in the parking lot.
Yep.
And there were speculations around that. And if you call the 900 number, how does Mankind fit into all of this?
Stay tuned next week to find out. I do like it though. I think it's really cool because it ties it into the show. So I guess in a way you feel like you're a part of the show. And
even if you don't call, next week, oh, something's going to happen with these people. These people who weren't on the show, who weren't mentioned until the 900 number, and then you get a little taste of, oh, that's something extra.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Back on Nitro, we saw, wrestling legend, Big Jim Powers, in a United States Championship match against some dude named Ric Flair. Woo! It's... I love to see the Nature Boy. Woo! Going out and defending a title on television. Woo! 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 It's amazing because, this was a great match.
Especially Ric Flair, with the way that, Miz and Seth, treat their belts like, yeah, no, my terms, my time, I'm not gonna wrestle on this TV show. It's, you'd expect Rick to be kind of like that, but no, he goes out there and he has a match.
He goes out, he has a great match, made Jim Powers look good. It just was Ric Flair, it was just great. It was the best ever. After that, we cut to Eric and Bobby Heenan, and Eric really kind of doing what he does really well, I think, in cutting this kind of impassioned promo about Hulk Hogan's exit from WCW and what it means, and the betrayal and so on and so forth. So it was pretty good stuff by Eric. I liked it a lot. We also saw the Dungeon of Doom interviewed by Mean Gene talking about, wanting to destroy Hulkamania, and that was taken away from them by Hulk's betrayal. Yeah. And the Giant being like, hey, I beat Hogan, I'm the champion. Don't let him talk. Just stop letting him talk. Because...
It's tough because...
He's great now.
His voice is so low that I think with the way the microphones were back then, he has to speak a certain way to be heard. It just, he puts on this weird voice when he's on the the live mic. Really?
Yeah, he was told to do, Hogan, I'm gonna... They made him.
That sucks, because it sounds awful.
It does.
It's not quite so menacing like you just did.
Yeah.
It's just like...
So,
I love you, Big Show. I love you.
Yeah, we really do. We also saw Chris Benoit in action against Sergeant Craig Pittman with Teddy Long. Holla, 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 player. Man.
Benoit with some wicked bruises on his face.
Him and Sullivan, man, just going at it.
He had a spot right here that was this color.
It was nuts. And Sullivan had it too. Just because they beat the hell out of each other at every pay-per-view, because they had as we've discussed in the past, real
life,
heat. Yeah.
Real life beef.
You know, but this was a good match. I thought they did some cool things with Pittman. Benoit showing just the intensity that he brings and just kind of why he's in the spot that he's in with the Four Horsemen and things like that. It's really cool. He gets the win, but they did it with Teddy Long kind of throwing in the towel, so to speak, because Pittman wasn't tapping. He's like, I'm good, and Teddy Long's like, no, call it, and then Pittman passes out.
Right.
So I'm interested to see if we're going to see some sort of elevation of Pittman. Maybe see him more, possibly, because that is kind of what that felt like.
Yeah.
You know,
it's kind of he never gives up.
Yeah, like maybe he never gives up. 20 years early. That's right, John Cena took everything he knew from Sergeant Craig. So we go into the main event, and along the way we've been shown this limo, you know, and they keep talking about the recap of the bash, the what Hogan did, seeing this. Gee, I wonder who could be in the damn limo. Of course it's the Outsiders. But we did get...
Not the Outsider. These Outsiders. They haven't made the T-shirts yet. They just keep referring to
I think Nash was wearing like a strip club shirt.
It was a bar.
I think it was a strip club.
It said bar. It didn't say like get your booby tassels here.
Fair point. But we did get a cool main event.
There were lips on it.
I'm telling you, I think it was a strip club. You know, we did get a great main event. Arn Anderson and Sting.
Right, but what did Sting do? Cut a promo about Hulk Hogan being a piece of garbage.
Macho came out, and he's cutting a promo on Sting or on Hogan as well, and no Hogan, if you had, you know, just going off, and you know, it was cool. And Arn and Sting was a great match. Sting picks up the win as you'd expect him to.
I hated his facial hair.
You didn't like it?
That drove me nuts.
Cool.
He just had this like goatee stubble. I guess he's growing one in, but it looked like he just woke up from like the plane in, and it just didn't shave.
I
didn't like it.
You know, the Outsiders made a presence on the show. You know, kind of cut a promo saying like Hulk will be here next week, and you know, we're taking over.
Yeah, coming up to the ring, and Macho's being the rabid dog that he is.
So great, so great.
Quality stuff. And
Nitro closes out with of course, promised photos of what happened.
Yeah,
and
Hogan betraying.
Which we've all seen the video, we've seen the clips, the trash in the ring, the booting of the fan, you know, the standing there, the spooky fingers. You know, but saying all that, you know, these were weak shows this week.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that watching it, I was like, man, if only we had, like, some viable, strong third option.
Yeah, just something else to turn to.
Extreme.
That's a little too extreme.
That's way too extreme. What are we talking about? But of course, as we do every week on War with Words, we have to crown a winner. Who do you have?
This week, I'm gonna have to give it to Raw again. You know, the Nitro, it was just, it felt weird to me, and they kept, like, alluding, you know, later we're going to talk about this big event at the pay-per-view, and they never gave us any taste of it, and it was literally the very, very last thing.
Yeah.
But it seemed to take over the show in all of its mundane glory. Because all the trash talking of Hulk Hogan, like, the whole show, it just, they didn't focus on anything else.
Yeah.
And what they did, how they focused on the event was so lackluster that I was just disappointed. And Raw, I feel like they brought the same energy that they always do.
Yeah.
There was no lowering of expectations for me here. And I really liked the tag match at the end. I really liked how they closed the show.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to watch the next one because I loved the reveal of Psycho Sid.
For me, this was hard. This was a really hard decision because I felt You know, both shows had some bright spots, but overall there was nothing that made me go like, yeah! That being said, I give it to WCW because two things. Cruiserweight matches in which we saw a belt change hands on television. I'm a big fan of that. Not only titles being defended, but a title can change hands on free TV. I really like that. Eddie and Psychosis, Ric Flair. You know, Ric Flair in a singles match, in action, having a great match, being entertaining. In terms of delivery from the payoff from the pay-per-view, they dropped the ball completely. And I don't know if it's because in, you know, this day and age in wrestling, like, they really come out of the pay-per-view strong and they build so much off of what just happened. So maybe that's part of why we kind of feel the way we do. Maybe because I don't remember like how I felt back then watching, because I watched this back then, you know, and so I don't quite remember.
Well, maybe it's times like this that they look back on and go, we can't do that again.
Yeah.
We need to, because sometimes the Fallout shows are the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Fallout, the
Raw after
Fallouts
WrestleMania
are better than the pay-per-views,
yeah.
You know?
Raw after WrestleMania is the biggest Raw of the year because it's so big, it's so crazy. Well, and looking at it too, it's a very different time.
Mm-hmm.
They really want you to go buy the pay-per-view because there isn't really anywhere else for you to get it.
Yeah,
you have to watch the pay-per-view. So,
and they really did. They shoved it down our throats that buy it, it's replaying tomorrow. Buy. Buy
the shirt. Buy. But that being said, I look forward to next week. They told me Hulk Hogan's going to be there.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get more of these outsiders.
Right, what are they going to do? What are they going to say?
Are we going to see the tag belts defended now that we have #1 contenders? The Glacier promos. Maybe he'll be there next week.
Maybe.
You know? So it's things like that that make me go, okay, I'm excited for next week's Nitro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you gonna give me now? Because they know how to dangle that damn carrot at Nitro. I'll give them that. Like, they really know how to just a taste so you come back for more.
The carrot was pretty withered for me this week.
Well, understandable. Well, guys, that's all we've got this week for War with Words. You know, as always, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Who won for you? Also, please share, subscribe, and like the video because it definitely helps us, and we always appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
As we always say on Tandem Fandom, if you're going to be a fan,
bring a friend.
Woo!